Sorry, I don't know why the music keeps repeating. What the hell? Okay, anyways. Hello, everybody. Just as a reminder before we get started, this channel is for educational purposes only, or perhaps in the eyes of the law, for entertainment purposes only. Hey, T. Great to see you. Been worried about you. How you doing? You been busy with work? Vinyl Lady. Good to see you as well. Terry, hello. Shutdown. April. Black Uni. Ruzi, if I'm pronouncing it right. Chain Mind Asylum. 8, and everyone else out there in YouTube land. Hello to everyone also on Odyssey, Rumble, and Twitch. If you're watching over those platforms. Okay, looks like everything's running all right. Okay, so kind of got a really late night stream. I was up working on this one, re-reviewing it a little bit, because it's been a while since I listened to it. It's kind of been in my to-do list, so had to do a little refresher. So hopefully I don't miss much, but I'm going to try to let this one go with as few interruptions as possible, if at all possible. We'll see. So in short, it's classified as a near-death experience on the Jeff Mara podcast. Experiencer's name is Paul, but he was put into an induced coma. And the one thing with comas is a lot can happen. And sometimes it could be, like in Paul's case, peaceful and enjoyable. And then there are some that are flat out as evil as it gets. And we've covered some of that on the channel before. The chance of having a negative coma experience is much higher than in a near-death experience, and it's usually a lot more brutal. But this isn't the case in the one we'll be going over today. What's interesting is what Paul talks about in his experience is like he's a very, very nice guy. You can tell he's just sharing his experience and everything like that. But in one breath, he's talking about how he received loads of information on why we're here on Earth, blah, 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 blah. And then in the same breath, a little later on, he's saying, I don't know why I'm here. So it's really interesting. There's also some other things he goes over. Just so you know, he was out, pronounced dead for 52 minutes, drifted into a world of tranquility. Colors were experienced that can't be described on Earth. An overwhelming feeling of being at home, intense feelings of love and being wanted and needing. He felt safe, and basically, again, telling everyone that we're here to learn. And I think he compared it to being in college, if I recall. He also talks about how there's a contract or deal made in advance prior to coming to Earth. That's something we've talked about too. How there is definitely some sort of agreement before we come down here, or at least however you want to look at it, right? And which kind of leads me into rewinding a little bit back to yesterday's near-death experience that we went over. I think with our death, and it's pretty much predetermined. Now, I think the only thing that really can change is if you have someone else's free will that gets out of hand, and perhaps you're the victim of a crime or something like that, and that's to us. You know, there's always going to be some free will component involved in some cases, right? But then, of course, there's others where they're clearly life scripts. So make of that what you will, but I think we all kind of have a death date, and it's probably pretty solid. And Paul even mentions that himself, I think, towards the middle or end of the experience there. And he also says, you know, we're in a meat suit. And what's interesting is he also talks about pets and how they understand more than we think. And I think that many of us who have pets would agree with that our pets are great, and there's much more to them than, you know, they're not all NPCs. There might be some, but some of the pets I've had, no way. And anyways, I think I have that on. See, there we go. Hello, everybody. Thought I had the camera on. I apologize. All right, so let's get rolling. And just so you know, yesterday I guess there was some commercials that ran during the middle of the stream. I don't know what's going on with that. That might be a new YouTube thing. I have no idea. The only time I may run an ad once in a while is during a 5-minute break or something, but I'll never run one during the middle of a live stream when we're covering content. So if you do see ads, please let me know. I'm trying to see what's up with that, but I don't know. It might be a new YouTube thing. Anyways, let's get rolling.
The guest is Paul Schaefer, who is dead for 52 minutes, but during his near-death experience...
Oh, I want to give a special thanks to Jeff Mara Podcast for this episode. Check out his channel for your own research. That's Jeff Mara Podcast. Excellent channel to consume and build upon your own research to prove the soul trap to yourself.
It felt like it was days. Paul, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, good to meet you. Good to meet you.
Likewise. If you don't mind, can we start on the day that it happened?
Yeah, it was it was Sunday the 9th of January this year, so 7 months ago or 8 months ago now. I'd had some chest pains, and they'd lasted for a little while, maybe a couple of hours, and I really wasn't taking much notice of them. 2015 and 2016, I'd previously had 2 heart attacks, and those heart attacks had I'd ended up in hospital with stents, but I had no issues with that, perfectly fit after that. Anyway, the pains became apparent that they were turning into that kind of same heart situation, arm pain and the like, and the chest pain got worse and it was hard to breathe. So I rang an ambulance. I said to my wife, I think we should go to the A&E. So with that we did, and then we were told it's half hour before we can get an ambulance to you. So you're better off making your way to the hospital, which is only, thankfully, 2 minutes from where I live in London. My wife drove at great speed, avoiding all red lights, and got me there in about 3 minutes. And as I got into the situation of the A&E, sort of the triage, sitting in a chair, which was, I went straight into the triage room, sat down. The nurse put the cuff on my arm to take my blood pressure, and I died. I was told, my wife told me that they dragged me off the chair, or the nurse dragged me off the chair, and then started immediate CPR. And we've just seen somebody's put on here, the Queen has just died. So
I love how the Queen dies during the recording. Oh, the Queen died. Good riddance.
The A&E crash team were called, and the next thing I knew, after they'd done the 52 minutes of defibrillation and CPR, was my coming round, which was like being in a plane crash, is the only way I can describe it. I'd got 13 broken ribs. I had so much pain, and I was thrashing about and flailing around, and they then put me into an induced coma.
13 broken ribs. Horrible. I wouldn't want to be coming back with 13 broken ribs, I'll tell you that much.
And I knew no more until I woke up, which was a couple of days later. And during that time of being gone for the 52 minutes where they were doing CPR and the defib, and obviously all the adrenaline shots that they give you in the heart and all that kind of thing, I'd drifted into this lovely world of peace and tranquility, and was kind of immersed in a colour I can't describe, because it's not anything that is part of our spectrum. And it was kind of a mad. The 52 minutes seemed like a long time, like days and days and days of thoughts and feelings and knowledge. A huge amount of knowledge was coming into my mind, and it got to the point.
Okay, so huge amount of knowledge coming into his mind. So it's being received. Again, we have evidence after evidence after evidence of those saying they are receiving energy, or they're downloading information, or being handed information, whatever you want to say. The point is there are loads of NDEers out there, and just experiencers in general that go beyond NDEs, where they will say that, they knew the answer to every question. They were all knowing. That's a big term that pops up constantly. And what we really end up finding out, and most of the time they give it away in some form, like by using certain terminology. Again, it could be downloaded, received. There's always some sort of clue there that indicates that no, they are not all knowing. They are actually being given information. There's a huge difference there. So this isn't some all knowing, magnificent creator being state. It's information being transmitted within the confines of the matrix systems.
The amount of knowledge was coming into my mind, and it got to the point where I felt an overpowering feeling of being home, if that makes any sense. Like, it's just like you've gone away. I would imagine it would be if somebody went off to war and they was been around for a couple of years in a war, and they come home and it's that elation, that feeling of elation of going home. And it felt that way. It also felt that obviously this really intense feeling of love and being wanted and needed, but very calm and peaceful. And so while all this was going on, obviously I'm being crashed about. I didn't know none of that. I didn't see any lights or anything like that. And I didn't have any knowledge of anything that was happening to me in terms of my physical body. But my mind was in a place where I had knowledge. I didn't see anybody in the physical, in the sense that, oh, there's Jesus or there's a light or whatever. It was more the sense of knowing that they were there. And it was one of those kind of, I don't know how to describe it really. Oh, it's really an overpowering feeling that that my mum had passed. I knew she was there. I knew my dad was there. I knew my granddad and my parents and all my family before me were all there, and felt that I was safe. It was a nice, safe, soft, loving, magical kind of feeling. It was hard to describe. The only way I could describe it is when you first meet your first girlfriend and you fall in love, and you're kind of like, it's like that sort of feeling. It's like intense kind of need and want. And during the time this was going on, I kind of had, I don't know if it was mind faults or, I wasn't talking to anybody in specific, but I was getting loads of information like, why we're here? Why are we here? Why are we on this planet doing this stuff? I'm a charity volunteer and have done charity work now for the last 24 years. And I've also had 12 years of being an elected councillor. So I know you have councillors, I take it, in America, but councillors over a sort of one under a senator, if you like, So I did 12 years of that. So, it was all about what have I done here? What have I achieved here? And
what have I done here? What have I achieved? That's what kind of this whole experience seems to be centered around, which makes it pretty unique. But at the same time, it's the same old song and dance. Earth is a school. You're here to learn, blah, 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 blah. No offense to Paul if you're listening, sir. It's just we have different views about what's going on, but I don't mean any disrespect to any case that I go over.
Why am I here? And this came across as being at school, like being at college or university. You're here to learn.
Ugh.
That's the feelings that I was getting. It was like you haven't completed any tasks that you said you were going to do. And that also.
Okay, so remember, he's not, I don't know how old he is. I don't remember. Let's just say, 60s? Maybe younger, maybe a little older. Anyways, I think he mentions it at some point. So they are telling him that, you know, he hasn't done anything that he's supposed to do. How can he have done nothing he's supposed to do by this point in his lifetime? Remember, this just happened like what, a year, 2 years ago, maybe? Because this was recorded in 2022. I think it happened 8 months prior. So yeah, let's just say a couple of years of it. So, you know, the system is telling him you haven't done anything that you're supposed to do.
Completed any tasks that you said you were going to do. And that also thought was...
I'm sorry, I just have to also say this. What did he say about 5 minutes ago? He said he worked in charitable organizations for many years. What was it, 20 years or 10 years? Whatever the heck the year. Long time. What about the charitable stuff? Does that not count? Is that not part of a learning experience? Is that not good? See, I mean, he seems like a good man who wants to do good for others. I mean, if he's involved with charities, assuming they're good charities and not skimming off the top too much, then it seems like a good man. So he hasn't done anything right. You haven't done anything you're supposed to do yet.
Learn. That's the feelings that I was getting. It was like you haven't completed any tasks that you said you were going to do. And that also thought was that I'd made this arrangement, this contract, I don't know, the deal you do when you're there to come here and do this thing on this earth. And it's not completed. The feeling of not being complete of what you're supposed to have done. So, you know, if I was supposed to repair a car or whatever, I haven't got to the end of it. It's not running yet. And that I had more to do. And it was also about kind of learning that people are playing a very, very important part. We're all linked. We're all like a chain link fence. We're all connected somehow. And so all the things that we do, you know, if you walk up the road and you turn right, it's got a different connotation to going left. And you see that, you understand that. And I also got to understand that.
Okay, so before he continues, I think this is something, you know, for those of you who've been watching a while, you know, the whole we are one thing, you know, that's another big thing that is pushed on Earth, right? Now, perhaps it's true, right? Perhaps it's true. I'm not completely discounting it, but what I will say is what does that type of thinking do? It kind of goes to the whole concept of merging, being involved with the hive mind. And that's, you know, nothing I want to be involved with. Now, perhaps when we're here, see, this is the other thing, like experiencers could be having this, and a lot of other individuals on Earth could either have experiences or intuition that, yes, we are all one, but maybe that's only in the context of the entire matrix system, right? Who is to say if we are one outside of here, if we reclaim our essence and liberate ourselves? Who's to say that we are one outside of here? I mean, it makes sense that we are kind of one when we're all stuck in this fishbowl together, you know, this or terrarium, whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't know. Nightmare holographic Freddy Krueger experience. But, you know, I just think, I think it's something that everyone should really take into consideration, because I feel it's a dangerous way to think. And if it is true, then so be it. We'll find out. But kind of like stripping things down bare to the non-interference, which is shielding, sovereignty and liberation, creating your own realm, using your intention to build that realm and make sure that realm's outside of this entire matrix system. That's like just self-preservation. That's protecting yourself and looking out for you. Now, if the whole we are one is true, if the light is as advertised, everything's a school, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? We'll find out at some point, but the way I kind of see it is like, it's better to be safe than sorry. You got to remember, the memory wipe is their biggest tool. And in my opinion, it's the nail in the coffin that proves this whole thing to be a complete dumpster fire of lies. And all we are is told lies here. And then everything is contradictive to what's happening here in the astral. So you got to ask yourself, I mean, a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit because it's always the opposite of what the hell is happening here. And you have to remember that the system that you're going back to is the system that sent you here. The system that you came into initially and agreed to, experience. So there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of things that we just need to take into consideration and leave on the table. There's nothing wrong with thinking about certain concepts and all that stuff, but I really think the most important thing is stripping everything down to the core, where you're just concerned about your own self-preservation and liberation. So there's a little bit of a rant.
At some stages in my life, I'd obviously offended people. And that offence, although not recognised by me, was recognised, I was seeing that they were offended, the people in the past that I'd offended. And I could see from their point of view how they felt rather than how I felt. I might have said something out of turn and not even thought about it, but they've taken offence. And I got all of this kind of massive flooding information. But it was just like, it seemed like a hell of a long time, days and days of this stuff coming into my mind. Obscure things, like, you're going to laugh at this because I did. We talk to our pets, don't we? We talk to our dogs and cats, and they respond. When you teach them, they're kind of parrot fashion. Roll over, smile, bark, all that kind of stuff. It was, and the knowledge of having the pets have understanding. You can communicate with a pet. You don't have to talk to a pet. You can communicate by not talking, just by, thinking or transferring thoughts. And they can actually command a conversation. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, does it? It makes it's balmy, And one of the things that I said when I was talking when I came round a couple of weeks after I came out of it all, was, I'm not going to recount this to people because they're going to think I'm off my they're off my head,
Okay, so yeah, I think the whole thing with pets. There are some out there. There's actually quite a few out there that think pets have no essence within, right? I think a lot around us has essence. A lot can be experienced through this realm in all various types of forms. Something I've talked about a lot is, I think, the way this system, I think the best way to look at this entire experience that we're in, I know it's crazy, but I think the best approach to viewing this experience is through the lens of a parasite. Put yourself in their shoes. Think diabolically. Like, how would you set it up if you were, getting this whole thing together and it's some big evil master plan to extract energy and creator being abilities and keep this perpetual cycle of reincarnation going and the scam and the false hierarchy, all this stuff, what would you do? So I think we all, well, actually, in my opinion, I don't think it could be anything else. I just don't. I think we all initially come here to experience. It could even be the talk of the universe or the multiverse, so to say, that, hey, you want to go get your ass kicked and experience something different, go to Earth, right? I mean, it could be something like that, where we're hanging out with other essence beings and decide to go and experience it for ourselves. Because, hey, you're an eternal being, you'll get out eventually, or you'll do, you want to experience different things. Anyways, sorry, I'm repeating myself, but going back to the animals thing. So my kind of thought on all this is, like, if I'm thinking in the terms of how this system sets itself up, what I would do is, okay, so, April decides to come into the Matrix, right? And, okay, oh, come on in, April. We'll show you around. And, here you got to sign your essence away. And the only way to get out is by liberating yourself. And, that'll be whenever it'll be. Okay, so April, what we're going to do is we're going to show you the Earth. Okay? We're going to send you down. So you may start off in a very chilled position. You may be a leaf on a tree. You may be a blade of grass. You may be a fish or a worm or a flower or a butterfly or a mouse, and you keep building up, right? You could just probably come here as a basic observer. Hey, it's chill. It's, and you start witnessing everything that's going on around you. And granted, it's probably a different form of consciousness, but still in the physical reality. Now, eventually, everyone kind of probably works their way up to different forms. But what's happening as you're building yourself up to these different forms? You're losing yourself more and more and more. You're more entrenched in this experience over and over and over again, being memory wiped, experiencing different forms. And well, before you know it, you're lost or were lost, right? I mean, that would make the most sense on how you would run this place. I mean, of course, there could be a bunch of different things that we're not even considering, but why wouldn't you kind of, massage, the early recruits into a point where you get them comfortable, and then boom, they're so far along at some point that the memory wipe's taken over. And then, of course, you have the attachments. You start building family relationships. Heck, you can be a wolf in a wolf pack and, or a mother or father having cubs and building those attachments, those relationships. And then eventually you evolve into a human and then you build those. And then the real attachments start to come in, right? And then, boom, you're lost in this sensory addictive experience that's almost impossible to get out of, but not completely. So that's why we're all here together, right? Anyways, that's just some of my thoughts on it. Feel free to share your thoughts. I'm interested.
This is balmy stuff. This is real crazy, And I sort of kind of promised my family, I'm not going to talk about this too much, but we had a discussion or two about what I'd gone through. But I still kind of feel that way. I feel, even now talking to you, I'm thinking, you think I'm mad, It's just it's not in the same realm of things that we do on an everyday basis. So it's like as though you've had some kind of hallucinogenic drug, it's some inducement of some kind of, I don't know, speed or LSD or something like that. It's surreal, really surreal. But during that time of
I'm sorry, I just saw an interesting comment from Patrick. Patrick says, I knew something was very wrong when I was 7. It all felt too mysterious. That's an interesting age too, right? Because it's right on that cusp of where your brain waves are switching to a different frequency. And so it's interesting that you mention age 7. I sorry to kind of interrupt it, but it's a really cool comment to see that. Like, for as far back as I have memories for, I always felt like I didn't belong here, or that something was wrong. But I don't know exactly the age that I started feeling that way. But I mean, as far back as I have memories for, I always thought this place was something was off, and that this wasn't quote unquote my home, right? I didn't like not belonging. So I'd love to hear more if you have anything else to share, Patrick. Sorry, let's continue.
But during that time of the 52 minutes that I was gone, which I said, it felt like days. All this information, that you would never normally think about. You wouldn't be in my head. Certainly wouldn't be in my head. I'm a kind of logical guy. I'm here. I do a job, and when I finish that job, it's over. But the thoughts kept coming back that you haven't finished this job that you're supposed to be doing, this tasking that I've put myself to. I also got to understand this, that we choose when we're born, we choose how we exist, we choose when we die, and we choose how we die.
Okay, and almost all of this has been continually confirmed in not obviously all of it, but in some pre-birth experiences and some in past life regressions, life between lives, and reincarnation accounts. This information comes out consistently. It may not say all of what Paul just said in one foul swoop in a specific experience or case, but they are spread out and prevalent enough where this is confirmed. I mean, this is what seems to be happening. Everything is planned, including, you picking your parents, geographical location, involvement in your soul group, your life script, if you're going to be born poor, or if you're going to be poor and grow and end up being rich, or grow up in a rich family. I mean, whatever the case may be, disabilities, all that stuff. Very, very controlled and scripted from the jump. And I think not just birthdays, but death days are scripted as well, just like Paul's saying. Strongly agree with that. And just one more thing, something I'd like to really put out there. I truly believe that someone out in the realm has the ability to predict deaths. We have enough information of birthdays and death days and signs, astrological signs, all this stuff. I think there has got to be a way to predict a death date for every single human being on this planet, in this realm. I hate saying planet, but it's conditioned into me, right? In the realm. So anyways, if there was like some way, say like I walked into a boatload of money or something, I would put a lot of it on the line to try and find someone who can, crunch numbers and run all sorts of different types of algorithms to try and maybe see if it can predict something, and then start a running tab, so to say, with maybe individuals in hospice or those who are terminally ill, and take their data and see if, hey, when they die, does the do the numbers match? Do they show a predictable pattern? I mean, really, I yeah, exactly. 100%. It's out there. Someone knows this stuff. Heck, one thing I ran across, I think, a few years ago was how Amazon is able to predict when a woman may have a baby. So like there's videos on this out there of women talking about how all of a sudden they started getting suggestions for diapers and baby stuff. And then, well, lo and behold, like a month or so later, or even weeks later, they take a pregnancy test and all of a sudden they're pregnant, and they're going to have a child. I mean, so there is information out there. It's just a matter of figuring out what that information is, how to apply it, and be able to prove it. So I know I'm kind of ranty tonight, but there's definitely something. Yeah, astrology is got to be the key. It has to. Feel free to share anything if you know it, but yeah, I'm convinced astrology has the answer too. That's my opinion.
Kept coming back that you haven't finished this job that you're supposed to be doing, this tasking that I've put myself to. I also got to understand this, that we choose when we're born, we choose how we exist, we choose when we die, and we choose how we die. We choose that. That's in my head. That's the thoughts that I was having. That's the sort of crazy bits, really. And
something I know, I'm sorry for stopping it, but something I want to throw out there that I think everyone should consider doing, or if you want to, is, again, like he's saying, like, you know how you're going to die, the way you're going to die, and the date. All right. So if that information's out there, try subverting that life script, assuring yourself that there's no exceptions. Your intention is set forth for a 1 gazillion% pure, unadulterated, lucid death that is not filled with endless suffering, right? Or any sort of suffering. It's like, you want to go quick, right? But at the same time, you also want to make sure there's lucidity there. And which leads me to one more thing, especially like in a case like we have with Paul, right? Paul basically started having heart issues and, was brought back to life and, broke, 13 ribs and all that stuff. A DNR is important. Do not resuscitate. Who the hell wants to leave and come back and have the possibility of coming back to like a worse body? The other thing is you don't want like a long drawn out death that involves like high amounts of medications where you can have your judgment clouded. There's a difference between being comfortable and being incoherent, right? There's a difference between, having pain relief and not overdoing it. And the issue is like things like hospice and all that stuff. Basically, what they do is they knock the person off at some point. They reach a progression in their illness where it's the pain is horrible and this and that, and basically they overdose them. And that's really what hospice does, at least in America. I can't speak for other countries, but you don't want your judgment clouded. So set forth your intention for whatever your scripted death is. Death date, fine, you can keep the death date, right? Who gives a shit about that? But you are demanding lucidity so that you are level-headed, clear-headed, and capable of asserting your intention the right way. That's all. And please don't forget to work on a DNR. Yes, and cremation is key too. Cremation is absolutely important. Talked about that before. And that's a whole nother topic we could go into. We can talk about organ transplants and how that's a hell of a rabbit hole in and of itself. Talked about it a few times, but with organ donations, someone who, for instance, someone gets an organ donation and they can take on some forms of the personality in the person who donated the organ. Like, for instance, someone might hate pizza or hate pineapple, and then all of a sudden they love pineapple, they love pizza, or whatever the case may be. And then sometimes there's even traits, there's even dreams and certain memories that can appear. It's a really, really weird thing. So, cremation all the way, DNR all the way, lucidity, all that stuff's really important. Just set yourself up for an easy ride. That's all I'm saying.
We die. We choose that. That's in my head. That's the thoughts that I was having. That's the sort of crazy bits, really. And we won't go until we've actually completed all of the things that we said we were going to do. So,
nothing's going to change until you do everything that you say you're going to do. This is why the Matrix cannot be pleased. I stress this all the time. You cannot please this system. There's nothing to please. There's nothing to learn or grow from. The only thing to learn and grow from is figuring out you're in this BS system and that you need to liberate yourself and that you are a powerful creator being capable of doing that. That's it. That's all. That's the only lesson here. But it's so difficult to get there. Difficult. So they don't make it easy, but they also give clues everywhere too. That's the amazing thing about all this. The clues are everywhere.
And we won't go until we've actually completed all of the things that we said we were going to do. So at that point, I mean, there was a lot of after thoughts after I came out. So when they brought me out of the resuscitated me, at that point when I was flailing about, I was more interested in this plane crash situation than what I'd been through, because I'd gone from what seemed like 4 or 5 days into what felt like a nanosecond of time of nothing. Like I was just sitting in the chair a minute ago. What am I doing here? What am I doing? Why are all these ribs broken? I've got 13 broken ribs. I've been on this machine they call a Lucas machine. I've been smashed about and having ribs broken by doctors and nurses. I've had shocks. I've got burns. I've got all this sort of stuff going on in my life. I'm thinking, well, how did this occur? I was just sitting in the chair a minute ago, and now this sort of, second in time, even though I've got all these thoughts about this stuff, the time's gone past in a split second over nothing. And so then became obviously the recovery, and they put me into an induced coma, which I was in for about, I think, 2, maybe 3 days. I can't remember exactly now. Memory's shot in that sense. There's still lots of bits and pieces that come to mind for no reason. But when I came out of the coma, it was horrific. And then when the time that I was in hospital, because it's during the time of the pandemic, height of the pandemic, or the last height of the pandemic, the second part of the pandemic, I wasn't allowed visits in the hospital.
Now, when I heard this, my heart just ached for him. And my heart ached for anyone who was sick or dying and unable to see their friends, their family. I mean, just just so cruel. So cruel. And wow, T, that is so kind of you. T just sent a gift of 10 memberships out for the Last Timers Club. Thanks so much. That's so kind of you. Appreciate you, my friend.
So I was pretty much alone. No family visitors were allowed in the UK. So I was pretty much alone, except for the nurses that were looking after me in the intensive care unit. And I was shot. You know, my kidneys had failed, my liver had failed, it all gone, and I wasn't really on a good side of living in any situation. So it wasn't until I think the third week of intensive care, a high dependency unit, I'd had dialysis, and the kidneys had started to return and the liver was starting to work again, because it was all shot, it was all gone, it was all failed. And I was having dialysis and blood transfusions. My blood had turned acidic and was starting to thicken, I gather. I got to speak on the phone, on the mobile phone, which I could barely hold at that point because I was too weak. But I had a nurse help me, and it got to the point where I understood that my family were told the chances of my survival were pretty much low, because I'd been around without oxygen, having the CPR for that amount of time. I was likely to suffer from what they call a anoxic brain injury. So lack of oxygen to the brain would have made me a kind of a vegetative state. And they told my family, you don't expect any real change. Chances are I'd probably be in a pretty bad condition, not being able to move or talk or do anything like that. But when I did come round, I got this, I suppose it was the doctors asking me my name. They said to me, "What's your name? Do you know where you are? Do you know why you're here? Can you move your arms? Can you move your legs? Can you blink? Can you move your fingers?" And I could do all of that. So I remember one doctor looking at the other doctor saying, "This guy's got 9 lives, he shouldn't be doing any of this." And at that point, they told my family, he's actually back and he shouldn't be. And then I became an interest in the hospital to people about what had previously occurred. Doctors and nurses were coming into my room and asking me, when you were gone, what happened? And then I started to remember these things again and recounting these things again, and to the point where at one point they said, "Well, you're a medical mystery, really, because you shouldn't be here. You should never have survived that kind of length of time without any oxygen." Because my heart just quivered. It didn't do any beating in that 52 minutes until about the 51st minute, I suppose. And so just being alive for them was like, wow, you know what I mean? And then they started asking the questions, because obviously they've seen it before. I was asking, "What happened, Paul? Did you see anything?" They always say, I start with that, "Did you see anything?" Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I did, but you're not going to believe it, because I still can't believe it. I still can't get my head around any of it. And it kind of, all the bits and pieces came back about the colours and the intensity of the love and the thoughts of your family being there looking out for you, and understanding that we're not alone ever. We're never alone. It's like when you die, you just move like from one chair to another, but you're in a different time and a different dimension.
You go from one deception to the other, and the two are linked. And that's been proven consistently that the two worlds work, or I hate to say two because there's obviously more than one, right? The worlds work in unison together. The realms work in unison together so that the deception is seamless. One of the things I like to mention regularly is how it's the continuity of familiarity, right? So that things that are learned and experienced here, attachments that are built upon while here, carry over and are used against us over there to keep the deception running, to keep the false hierarchical system seem authentic when it's nothing but the sort.
Time has no meaning when you're dead. No meaning at all. As I said, it's like the feeling that we humans created time, that time has no relevance to death. And so being dead for a minute or 52 minutes makes no difference. It's a nothing. It's that nanosecond, even though the feeling is that it's a long time. It's not. And our life isn't that way either. Our life isn't very long. And what we do in that life is important. That it's timely, that we do it. When we do it in the right way. And my understanding of it was that everything has a time and a place on this planet to do what you have to do before you can go back to that dimension that you were previously in. And that's where we all started from. We're not here. We're born here of this earth, of our mothers, but we started there. This is just the meat suit that we've chosen. It sounds crazy.
I love how he uses the term meat suit. That's one of my favorite sayings, It's like the meat suit. It's just, that's exactly what it is. But even though, yes, we did come from, quote unquote, there, we'll just say the astral, that's linked there. The question is what about everything before we came into Earth? What about everything we experienced before we came into the astral realms or the multiple layers that are involved in this mass deception? What about that? So many just want to like simplify things and just give up, really, and not think bigger. Like that's like what I try to like put forth on this channel. It's like, just think bigger. Just think, hey, look, the memory wipe is very real. So, if these systems are all linked, and they are, then ask yourself, where did you explore? Where did you, come from even just before this experience, before the first time you came into this system? What realm were you in before this? Or what realms were you in before? I mean, we're not talking about like when you were quote unquote born as an essence being, because who's to say that's even the case? It could always have been this way. But, regardless, ask the big question, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, hey, where was I? What was I doing before I even came into the system? I should be thinking bigger and bolder, and that, I want to have more answers than what's provided within the overall matrix systems, right? That's all. That's all. Just think a little bigger. You deserve it.
Suit that we've chosen. It sounds crazy, but that's what it is. We're a meat suit. I'm not even sure now, to this day, I sometimes feel that I'm not quite back. That might sound a bit strange as well, but I sometimes think, am I being operated by my spirit, soul, whatever, on a kind of remote basis? Is this just a method of transportation, a method of doing things? But I'm not. I feel like there's still something back there that hasn't quite come back here. Does that make any sense?
I think it makes perfect sense. I think I think it's best to kind of look at it this way, right? The human body, or the meat suit, is a governor and a filter of information. It's so stripped down compared to what our true essence is that, of course, we're only processing it like the bare bones, the minimum of all minimums, right? So when we do eventually pass on at the time of natural death, or even if you have an NDE or something, NDE or OBE or some sort of experience that launched out of your body, you realize very quickly that you are a lot more open and accessible to information and in a different type of existence. But the real prize is at the time of death, natural death.
Loads and loads of, afterthoughts. Once I was out of the hospital, I was in there for about 3 weeks in intensive care, and they let me home very disabled by whatever was, the crushing ribs, a chest full of Lego bricks all moving about inside. And then just the kind of reoccurring thoughts of things that I would never have thought of before, like the dogs and cats and the pets thing and all that. So it was quite intense and quite in a sense memorable, that it was in a good way. It wasn't a bad way. There wasn't, I gained the knowledge there isn't a hell. There's no place. You're not going to be punished, and that we are all part of the same existence. We're all, if you want to call it God, a deity, I don't know really what you would want to, how you want to book it, but we are all as good as each other. We are all similar souls, all part of this one unity, one thing, and we've all got a place to be and a part to play, and we do, and when we've done, we leg it back, and then carry on in our original world of spirit, soul, being, as I said, which is just crossing the road from one place, or moving a chair from one room in the room to another chair in another room, or something of that nature. It's not far away, and they're not far away. That was the main thing, is knowing that I'm sitting here talking to you now, Jeff, but I feel that my family are surrounding me. They are here. They can be 2 or 3 or 5. They could be 10, but they've all got the ability to be here. And you have the ability as well, when you're gone to the afterlife, to make contact with, not necessarily in terms of ghosts and spooky things and stuff like that, but you can do it by making that person aware that you're there. They not necessarily get it at that point in time, but they will eventually understand that, oh, I reckon that must have been me uncle or me auntie, or some loved one making a kind of contact. It could be the craziest things. I'm convinced my every time I see a squirrel now, we have a lot of grey squirrels in England. Every time I see a squirrel, I'm convinced now that that's my mum recognising or telling me that she's here and she's about. And she had no link to anything, any animals in that sense, but that's the way I feel about it. That's the way, I see a squirrel in the morning running across the front. I've had them actually sitting on the gate, never seen it before. And now I have squirrels sitting on the gate of my house looking at me. I could be sitting on a little bench outside my house, and there'd be a squirrel sitting there just looking at me, you know, and you think, I say good morning. It's crazy. I know it's crazy, but I say good morning to a squirrel. It's madness. I think they're going to put me away one day.
Hope not.
So, I mean, that in a succinct way, I suppose, is what occurred. Like I say, you're here to learn. You're here to learn why you're here, what reason I'm back. I don't know. People say, oh, you must have done some really good things for people, and therefore, you know, you've been given that second chance, if you want. But I don't know. I don't really know. It doesn't seem to be, you don't know the purpose.
You don't know the purpose. You don't know the purpose. Can't tell you how many experiencer cases I've run across and even covered on this channel where they will openly say, like, oh, I was getting all the answers to the universe and or the realm or whatever you want to call it, and about my purpose, about myself, about my existence, about everything else in relation to it, and how we all are one, and blah 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 blah. And then they come back and they don't have access to that information, and they don't even know why they are here. And here is another example of a case with Paul where, you know, he was supposedly given this information and he doesn't know. He doesn't know why he's here. He knows it's a school. He knows it's a learning experience and that we all got to play our roles and blah, 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 blah. But he admits, just like many others, that they really don't know. I mean, a lot of NDEers I've heard say, you know, I hope I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but I don't really know. It says everything. It points straight to deception. Point blank. I mean, it's so in our face, my friends.
You know that you have to complete it, whatever it is. I have to complete
whatever
it
is, whatever it is, you got to complete it. Whatever it is, you know. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, I got to complete. Remember, however old he is, he has the experience, and they're saying you haven't completed anything that you're supposed to do. You mean he did charitable work and this and that. Seems like a good guy, meaning well and a good heart. And, you know, he was being told, hey, you know, you didn't do anything. You didn't get anything done. Get back down to earth. And then apparently, you know, he's given all these answers, but in the same breath is saying, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Just going to hope that what I'm doing is correct. Well, if it's a learning experience, A, you wouldn't be memory wiped, and B, you would have some sort of rough draft or outline about what you're supposed to do in order to grow and learn inside a system like this. Come on.
No, I don't really know. It doesn't seem to be, you don't know the purpose. You only know that you have to complete it, whatever it is. I have to complete it. And if that's but I have learned that you should always do as much good as you possibly can. I've always been a Christian man, although I was, you know, before I had the near-death experience, you could call it, I always wondered if, you know, we would meet our Christian brethren, you know, whether I'd see Christ and whether I'd see God, but I didn't see any of the light stuff that people talk about. And I didn't know any of that, really, until I started looking into it. So like a couple of months ago, when I got involved in, you know, the sort of Facebook NDE stuff and other people's accounts of it, and then go, oh yeah, do you know what? I remember that. And sometimes they can trigger little memories that you didn't have at that time. You know, where did that come from? That I've remembered it, and it sort of goes on. But yeah, so we're here in this big library of font of knowledge that I don't know what for, and I don't know why I'm here. All I know is that I'm blessed enough.
I don't know what for, and I don't know why I'm here. All I know is I'm blessed. Okay. Poor Paul.
That I don't know what for, and I don't know why I'm here. All I know is that I'm blessed enough to be alive and with my family for another number of years. I've got 93 in my head for some reason. So whether that's going to be the time. I was told yesterday what caused the problem, which I didn't know. It was just, it was an unknown electrical fault somewhere. I didn't even know that your difference between your heart has got electrical side of it and a plumbing side of it. So you've got electricians, you've got plumbers in cardiology, people that deal with specifics. And I learned yesterday it was a blood clot because I had cancer only 3 months before my cardiac arrest. I suffered from bowel cancer and had that successfully removed. It hadn't reached metastasis stage, and they just took a lump out and just joined it together. And I'd recovered quite well from that. As I have with this, I shouldn't really have recovered that quickly with that, but I did. But it was probably a leftover blood clot from a lack of blood thinners, I suspect. I'll put that down to me. But, so here I am, recounting all this past experience and looking forward to a longer life now, because they've told me that the chances of it happening again is pretty remote. So, it's not so scary now. It was scary, but it's not. So, but I'm not frightened of dying, that's for sure, because it's that was good. That was a really good experience, as opposed to plane crash situation coming out of it. That's it really. I can't think of anything else that I could add to that, apart from this, these memories that come up late in the evening sometimes when I'm just sitting there, could be watching the telly or doing a crossword or whatever, and then suddenly think about something. And where did that come from? Yeah, that's me. That's me, mate.
Paul.
Okay, my friends, we're going to take a short break and be right back. So hang in there. I'll see you shortly. we are back, my friends. Just as a reminder before we continue, this channel is for educational purposes only, or entertainment purposes only, in the eyes of the law, allegedly. I want to welcome Lena to the Last Timers Club. Thank you so much. Welcome aboard. Good to have you. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about that situation. You guys can do whatever you want, but not gonna happen. All right, I took care of those problems. And again, I'm not gonna deal with parasitic bullshit. Just not gonna happen. It's like, goodbye. I even suspected that one right out the gate, so see ya. All right, so anyways, sorry for the distraction there. Welcome back. We're going to be getting into the second segment today of Paul Schaefer's Coma Experience, and we are a little over halfway done, so let's get rolling. Okay.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us. At any time during your NDE, did you ever recognize that, I'm dead, or maybe I'm dead?
No, never had a thought of that. The only thing that I can remember that would resemble was the knowledge that my son, daughter, wife, and both my grandchildren were in a room with me, and one of them was stroking my forehead, and they were all wrecked. They were all in tears because they'd just been told, even though my heart was beating, I wasn't out of the woods. And I had that memory, and that was the only memory of any of that, being dead. I wasn't dead. I was just having a good time. Thanks very much. So no, I have no account of being dead at all.
As far as you understood, perhaps you were just in a dream, or you were just doing something else. You just kind of left the hospital and went somewhere else.
It wasn't something that I was recognizing. It was real. It was very real. It was more real than I can describe me as now. It was like, this is the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was the reality. And it still feels like that's the reality. And this is, like I said, it only feels like I'm 80% back here. It's 20% out there somewhere doing something else, I have been psychiatrically evaluated recently. I left it for months and months, and I am going through, I gather, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is expected, memory loss, which is expected, short-term memory loss. You ask me, do I want a cup of tea? And then 10 minutes later, you ask me again, do I want a cup of tea? And I probably haven't answered, or I've said to you a can I have a cup of tea, even though I've got one next to me, you know? So, but no, no, it just seems that was more real than my existence.
Quite often on the show, we talk about the higher self, and I kind of feel more it's a complete self. And it sounds like you were describing it, like when you said that some of you is still there. Do you think that really all of you is there and only a part of you is here, which is limited by your brain?
Yeah, I think, as I said to you, I believe that somewhere in the back of my mind that this is controlled. This is done from another place, that possibly that's where I am still. And this is remote. This is, this is something that's being done. I'm outside of my body. It's like not in a dream state, but in a, when you sleep and you wake up and you've had a dream, but you can't remember. And you're kind of racking your brains and thinking, oh, what was that all about? But you don't get it. You've had a dream and you can get little bits, but you don't know the full story. And that's the way it feels. It feels like this isn't the full story. This is like the dream, but I've woken up. I'm out there waking up. I'm not here woken up. So I'm kind of away from it all. This, as I said, I describe it as a meat suit, and once we leave it, we're back how we should be, how we started. In a sphere in the distance.
Could you say like this world here is like a video game and we projected our consciousness into this game, but we're limited?
I wouldn't say it was a game. I'd say it was an education. I'd go for education.
Okay, so interesting. I mean, Jeff always asks great questions. Really, I mean, he a great channel. I'll give him another shout out. Check him out at Jeff Mara Podcast. I'll be sure to also leave a link in the description tab if you're not familiar. I mean, Jeff asked like, "Oh, is it a game?" And Paul's like, "No, it's not a game. It's an education. It's a learning experience." Blah 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 blah. Right? I mean, it's the same old song and dance. We hear this over and over and over again. That was something Wayne and I talked about, Dan and I talked about, and many of us here have talked about how, it doesn't fit the concept of a game. It's too twisted and fucked in the head to be a game. I can't rationalize that in my head at all. I can't. I don't think there's anything that can rationalize this experience as quote unquote a game. It doesn't sit right at all. If it is, it's talk about, I mean, what the hell were we thinking coming into it, right? But no, I just don't think it's a game. I think it's just a very, very clever trap that is laid, and some come here, some don't. Some stay for extended periods of time, and some may see it quicker than others. Who knows, right? But a game, when you look at the atrocities and the suffering that happens here, well, you got to ask yourself, how could it possibly be a game? How? The horror shows that go on here do not, in my opinion, under any circumstance, classify it as a game. But of course, being open-minded, you kind of have to leave the option on the table a little bit, but I mean, I'm talking like 0.01% or 1%, whatever, but overall, no. It's diabolical through and through.
I'd say it was like going to learn, to gain knowledge, whatever that is. But you can go back. I had the sense that you can go back and get some of it and understand something, which is probably what's happened to me. It's like I've gone back there and I've gained a little bit more knowledge, more than I had before I left, for sure, because I wouldn't have had any of these thoughts. You know, I would have been thinking about how much food I could deliver to a food bank. I certainly wouldn't be thinking about anything that had gone past in that experience of being dead for 52 minutes.
He's talking about donating to a food bank. Remember, this guy, I don't know him. I don't know much about his background. He shared whatever he shared so far, and talked about working with a charity or charities for quite a long time. Did a lot of good. And I mean, I know I keep bringing this up, but remember what we heard earlier. He said, when he was having his experience, they were telling him, you haven't done anything that you said you were going to do. Or that you were, and the translation is that you were scripted to do. Because remember, this is a system you cannot beat. You cannot win. It's a lose-lose situation to the end unless you liberate yourself and figure out the scam. So, this guy, if I had to say it, is a good man. A good, true essence being that wants to do good for others and help the less fortunate. And he's being told that he hasn't done anything he's supposed to do. Well, what about, donating to the food shelters? Come on. Get the fuck out of here.
Anything that had gone past in that experience of being dead for 52 minutes. So yeah, I think I think it's an experience of learning. I think it's not a game. I think it's a necessity. It's an understanding that's, for whatever reason there is, what the end result is, I couldn't tell you, but maybe to go up a ladder, I don't know, maybe to be, as you say, a higher self or something.
That's a lot of maybes. That's a lot of unknowns. And therein lies the problem, right? If we don't know, if all of these experiencers don't know and they just keep saying, oh, it's a learning experience, this and that, and they just gloss over the atrocity, the suffering, the hardships, the insanely poor design of the meat suit and the oppression and everything that happens here. If all that can be overlooked and classified under one term as a learning experience, then something's not right. We're being hoodwinked, my friends.
Somewhere else. I got the impression that we're not all on the same level as well. But that came afterwards. That wasn't a thought that I had immediately in the hours straight after coming out of the coma, or that I'd remembered. It was kind of later on, and I thought, it's about how the bits that you've learned are the lessons that you need to come back and do something here that will eventually get to the point where you are fully educated in whatever it is you've challenged yourself to do before you can go back home to the afterlife or the beginning of life or our spirit world. So, yeah, I think that's how I would look at it. It would be not a game. It's an education. It's a fact that we have to do it. We have to do it.
Do you think that your NDE was pre-planned or an accident?
Great
No,
question,
I think it was. I think it was an accident. I feel like that if it was pre-planned, I'd be there. I think as I said, I'm under the understanding that we choose our demise. We choose when and where and how. And so if I'd have chosen that, I would have been there. I wouldn't be back. I would have stayed there. And the feeling of wanting to be there is quite overpowering. You know, it's like I said, I don't fear death.
Wanting to be there is quite overpowering. And how many NDEs talk about, even including Paul, in his experience, you know, I don't think we can necessarily classify it as an NDE, but, you know, because it was a coma and he had a different type of experience, but it has the similar attributes of other experiencer types of cases. So, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, the feeling of wanting to be there, right? The feeling like it's home. How many experiencers say that? I felt like I was at home. I felt like I belonged there. I felt like I didn't want to leave. Well, the reason why is because you're finally out of your body and the Matrix is giving you the 1-2 punch saying, hey, welcome home. And a lot of times the love bomb's involved, or there's family or friends and all these different types of attachments that you missed or wanted to be reunited with. It's a perfect storm. A perfect storm.
Is quite overpowering. You know, it's like I said, I don't fear death. In fact, death's a doddle. You know, it's easy. Life is hard. Life is hard compared, you know, and not so happy. Not so happy. But having the understanding that it's changed my spiritual attitude towards people. I don't take things too seriously anymore. You know, I certainly, you know, being a former elected member of Her Majesty's government,
Ugh.
you know, I've seen some things, and now I just look at another day, another dollar. Just get on with it. You know, enjoy your life as much as you possibly can, and be as good as you possibly can, and do as good as you possibly can do. You know, and then maybe you've earned your ticket. I don't know. You know, maybe you've got your bus fare home once you've done enough good things, you know. I do understand in my mind that there isn't any devils. There's no hell or, you know, because why would you have a creator? Again, you know there is a creator, but you know that creator is in you, and you know that you're part of that, and you're part of it as well. So you're part of that same creation. So why would it, if a good thing created you, why would it give you a bad rub at the end? You know, why would you be, you know, if you read, used to read the Bible every day. I'm not a vicar or a pastor or anything like that, but I could never get my head around the Old Testament, like chewing lumps of gristle, you know. But I've easily read the New Testament, I don't know, a dozen times, but I'm not promoting myself as a goody Christian or, you know, I'm better than you or anything like that. I'm not a religious man. I don't go to church. I had that faith. But, you know, since I had the NDE, I haven't read the Bible. I haven't read that Testament. And yet I read it. I read it. Up until January, I read it every single day for years and years and years. I'd start at the beginning of, you know, Matthew and go right away through to the end, and then start again as soon as a chapter a day, every day. But yeah, it doesn't. I know more now than I did before, so I'm not searching for that. It's knowledge now. It's knowledge that when we go, wow, you're, you know, all the promissory notes that are in there, I suppose, are there. They're already there. You've already preset that, and your existence here. So when you go back home, you go back to your original.
Notice how he said promissory notes. Again, that's like contract. That's consent. which I know notes and some other clowns like me to say. So,
Plan, original way of life or spirit or whatever, you're certainly not dead. You're not dead. You're not, when you die, you know, your meat suit might be thrown in a fire or buried in the ground, but you're not dead. You're not dead. I'm convinced of that.
Have you noticed since you've been back that you have any mental abilities that you didn't have prior?
Superpowers, you mean?
Well,
No,
you know, maybe some
really.
kind of clairvoyance or premonition or...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Intuition. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I know when something's going to go wrong now.
see, you know, with when he laughs at you know, special abilities and stuff like that, that is a good sign of someone who's being honest, right? Uh, one of the downfalls of having to go through experiencer cases is those that make bolsters claims, right? And that's not to say that some of them may not have certain abilities or come back with further enhanced abilities like intuition, keeping things very simple, like Paul's saying. That's, you know, it's more believable, right? And I'm not crapping on others who claim that they get abilities because I do think it happens. I do. But at the same time, some of them out there are ridiculous. Like they kind of piggyback it into like, oh, I'm clairvoyant and this and that and a whole laundry list of different types of abilities that they're all of a sudden able to charge you for. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And some of them you can see right through, and some of them are a little more sneaky. But I like Paul's response. I really do. He gave it a good laugh. Said, yeah, hey, yeah, my intuition's heightened, or my perception, or whatever the case may be. But you know, he's laughing.
I know when something's going to go wrong now. I feel it. Before I didn't have that sense, but now, yeah, definitely. And I can preempt things happening. Sometimes I can see things in my mind's eye that I wouldn't have seen before and think, oh, that's not a good thing. You know, driving the car, you know, I drive like Miss Daisy now. Before, you know, I own a Jaguar XJ, which is quite fast, supercharged thing. And I would have been sort of flying down a motorway, you know, 70, 80 mile an hour all day long, just cruising. Now I'm very conscious. I'm very conscious of looking at about, you know, people cutting other people up and, you know, kind of nearly having accidents. And I sort of know that I should be stepping back, get back out of the way, you know, because this is going to happen. And a few times I've seen cars come past me and I thought, oh, that's not going to be a good ending. And I've got down the road a bit and guess what? No, ain't a good ending for them. You know what I mean? They're in a situation where their car's written off. They may be still alive or, you know, unarmed, but the car's in a bad way and there's people standing around scratching their head going, how did this happen? But I'd already kind of preempted the knowledge of that and stepped back, stand back, get back a bit, stay away from it, you know? And it kind of makes me smile a little bit because you think, I knew that was going to happen. You know, it's really quite weird, really. But you sort of look at it. My wife says to me, you know, look at that fella there. Yeah, I know. I can see him. I saw him like 10 minutes ago back there, you know. Yeah, so there is an intuitive part. There is some some kind of knowledge that you get that things are going to occur, and they do. I did have it once when I was 16 years old. My nan was sick and I was working in central London, and we live in East London, which is about probably about 20 minutes back then. It's probably 20-minute drive through central London to get back from like Oxford Street where I was working. And I was packing up some garments in a box to be going off to a showroom. And I suddenly had this sense that my nan had died. And I said to the driver, who was the van driver at the time, take me home. I just need to go. I was coming back to the factory, which was opposite my house. I used to work in the factory opposite my house, manufacturing garments. I was a cutter in the clothing trade then. And he said, what's the matter? I said, I just got this. I need to go. I need to go home. And I sensed, and when I got to the door, my mum came to the door and she went, your nan's gone, But I knew it then. And that's the kind of thing that happens now. It's like, I knew that was going to happen,
While you were on the other side and you saw other family members, did you interact with them?
No, no interaction with anything. Just knowing they were there, the feeling they were there, feeling that somebody was there who was your protector, your guard, your mentor, that you had somebody by your side. I didn't see faces. I just had the knowledge that they were there. They were actually around me, and they were in the same state that I was in, and that was of almost euphoria, and excited, and you just had that feeling, the sense of it, rather than the look or somebody dressed up in clothing, and it was more the feeling of it rather than the seeing of it.
Do you recall any of the other conversation that you had with your pet?
No. I just got the knowledge that they have the ability to communicate, even though they're pets. They have the ability to communicate with us on the same level you and I communicate. But obviously they...
Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention earlier in the stream, and I've done this with a few of my dogs, even 2 that have passed, tell them, don't go to the light. Say it verbally, but also, look at them and try to telepathically transmit it. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy and bonkers, but it can't hurt, right? And if you have to put your pet down, also say it then, right? I mean, just keep reiterating it, throughout their lifespan. Let them know, let them know about attachments. Let them know about everything. Who knows, right? Heck, they could be sitting right next to you and understanding everything, but they just can't communicate it to you. But there is an essence in many of our pets. I wouldn't say all, but because I'll admit I that's so horrible. I think I had an NPC pet when I was younger. NPC dog when I was younger. Maybe I'm wrong, but my gut kind of tells me I did. So, who knows, right? But regardless of what your thoughts are, just let them know. That's all.
Dogs don't talk. I'm not a Dr. Dolittle by any stretch of the imagination, but and that was quite surreal as well. At one point, I don't know what I was thinking really. I was like sort of kind of astounded, at the same time understanding of that astounding sort of thought. It was like, well, it makes perfect sense. Why shouldn't you have communication with your pet? Because if you tell your pet pet to lay down or go get a stick, or it does, doesn't it? You know, so it has communication skills, but you don't realise that it has not speech but thought, in terms of you understand the thought of your pet and that pet understands your thought as well. And I think that that is the main, thinking back now, that's probably the way we would communicate in the afterlife. That wouldn't be about lips moving. It would be about thought and feelings and that kind of connection, really. I don't think it's all about shaking hands and pointing fingers, you know, come with me sort of situation. You know, I know now that some people have had those kinds of experiences where they have said, oh, I met my mum and she was dressed up in her favourite dress and she was at her favourite age and all that. But I didn't have any of that. But I've also seen people that have said, well, I didn't feel anything. I was just dead, you know. Near-death experience is just black and there's no more, you know. But even that is something. If you're not, I always use this. I ask my grandchildren, what are you doing? They go, nothing. I said, well, then if you're doing nothing, you must be doing something. And that's what it is. You're doing something, even though you believe it to be nothing. So, yeah.
How has your family reacted to this experience?
Well, we've had my daughter and I are well connected in terms of dialogue with each other. We, you know, she kind of understands it, and she tells her friends. You know, she's 38, and she says, oh, you know, my dad, this happened to him, and this happened to him, and they're quite interested about that. We don't talk about it every day. It's really now kind of put on the back burner a little bit. When I first came about back into this world, I was kind of excited about telling everybody. You know, I wanted to explode with all this information. It's like, I've got to tell you this. You know what I mean? This is really, really good. You should know, you know.
Sounds like when you first run into truth, right? You want to scream from the hilltops. Hey, have you looked into this? And what about this? What about this? And hey, can you believe they did that and this and this and that? And then you realize you're just flooding them with information that is counterproductive and going from one truth to the next.
Tell you this, you know what I mean? This is really, really good. You should know, you know, do not be afraid of dying. It's really great. You know what I mean? It's a good place to be. And I've kind of calmed down a little now. I've sort of 7-8 months on, and I'm thinking, I don't think they're going to quite get this. You know, it's not, you know, you're going to look at me like there's a guy in a white coat waiting for you around the corner. So I tend to sort of, we don't have that kind of dialogue across the table any longer. We talk about future and what we're going to be doing. And I look forward now more to seeing my family. I'm a family man. You know, I don't think anybody could have a closer family than me, in my opinion. But I feel more connected with people now than I did before. I feel for people. I have more empathy for people, even for people that I never would have done before.
Hey, John.
You know, I think, you're here to do this. You chose this, but it ain't necessarily going to damage anybody. You know, even one thing sprung to mind. Even Adolf Hitler had a mum, and she loved him. You know, so the feeling that there isn't anybody to give you any stick when you're gone, because you're born of love. Everything is around love. It's all about what you do in your life and how much you love your people and your friends and your family and anybody that you connect with. And everything that you've done in your life is forgiven. And I don't know if that's about the Christian side of my thoughts, but I certainly feel that when you go back into the time zone that you came from, that there's no guilt. There's no, there might have been a murderer or a serial killer or something like that, but that's your choice. That's what you did.
There's no guilt. See that? Yeah, the way this whole thing is structured, it's the fear, guilt, shame matrix, and it's proven that over and over and over again too. Not just here, but in the quote unquote afterlife, after you leave here, if you follow the direction that the matrix wants you to take. It capitalizes on all those things: fear, guilt, shame, attachment, all this stuff. Things learned here that cross over to the astral. It takes advantage of us and preps us. The whole concept of the system is to prep us to be fooled while here, so that when we do die, that the scam is preserved, so that there is one more incarnation, and then the memory wipe inserts. Boom. You lose everything, and well, what do you know? You're back here. And then you have to go through it all over again and ask all the same questions again, or not at all. Maybe you could just be a robotic NPC like being. I mean, I've talked about it a number of times on the channel that, I had NPC type qualities for a number of years of my life. And I look back at them and like, it's so cringy. But until you awaken, that's kind of where we're at. The life script kind of drives us. We're on autopilot. And then you obviously have all the compounding factors of governments and education and family and parents and friends and all that stuff. And everything is kind of reinforcing one another so that you don't ask questions. And if you do, then a lot of times you're ridiculed on top of it. Or called a conspiracy theorist.
And it's almost, it's hard to say really, but comical, strangely amusing when you're there, thinking, God, why did I do that? Oh, I know why I did that, because I chose it, So, but you understand, as I said to you before, you understand the consequences.
Okay, why did I do that? Equals shame. Equals guilt. Again, fear, guilt, shame matrix. A system you can't please. Why did I do that? Why?
You understand, as I said to you before, you understand the consequences from the other person's point of view, and that gives you, I don't know if you're self-judging or if it's
matrix driven,
your own guilt, your own feelings of kind of, I don't know what word to use really, like your ability to behave badly is what's caused this person this grief.
Okay, so I think the question I would ask Paul is like, who's the one that set up the system that got you to have to experience that? Who is the system that provided you the meat suit that you talked about and all of the atrocities that come with this place, all of the suffering and everything? And there's joy, of course, too, right? It's not all negative, but the point is what provided you the outlet to experience such a thing? And then, well, lo and behold, all these NDEers and all these experiencers can say that it's not judgment and condemnation or whatever you want to call it. But that's exactly what it is. But it's framed in such a way as like, how many NDEers do we see say, oh, well, you're judging yourself. But there is clearly a mechanism at play that is facilitating that judgment of yourself, quote unquote. That's the difference. It's consistent. It happens all the time in these experiences. And it's always just like thrown to the side like, oh, it's all you. It's all you. Well, there's clearly a system in play that is after you die, or if you have an experience, you end up hurling down the tunnel or ending up in a void, and then eventually ending up at the light and going through the life review or mingling with loved ones or whatever it is. And then eventually you reach the point where you do have this life review and, and they pick out the weirdest shit. How many times have we seen cases where the good things that they do, mind you, Paul has been donating to help the hungry, right? That's what he talked about. I don't know exactly everything he's done, but he's talked about doing good deeds for years on end, doing good. Well, you know what the Matrix would do, and I could guarantee it, because the Matrix is so freaking weird with this stuff. We see it constantly, where like the good that they do is always something completely absurd. Like, someone dropped a quarter in the parking lot and you picked it up and you handed it to him. Meanwhile, they could, Paul, again, feeding the homeless for decades or something. And that wouldn't even be addressed in the life review. And then the things that they do wrong, they have to experience through the eyes and emotions and feelings of those that you would offend. There was a case that I just listened to today. It's a short one. I'm probably going to do a quick video and upload it for you guys. But there was a case I ran across today. It was only about like 10 minutes. It's very, very condensed NDE. Wait till you hear this shit. So it was a woman, and I don't remember the exact scenario and how she, had her NDE, but it was something like, okay, so when she crosses over and is going through a life review, this is the moment that they decided to pick on her. She had just had a fight with her brother about 3 or 4 weeks before. And I guess they were in some sort of argument, right? And she raised her eyebrow. And the Matrix, prison warden asked her, "Now, what were you thinking when you raised your eyebrow at your brother in this moment?" This is the moment that, she's supposed to feel guilty for. So there's all these weird things. So the positive things that you wouldn't think in a million years would be on your side in terms of quote unquote judgment are not there. But the weird, stupid shit like picking up a quarter for the old lady who dropped it out of her purse, or dropped her bags in the parking lot and you help put it in the trunk. No. It's not something that simple. Or I'm sorry, it is something that simple, but for the big things, like the real systemic change that you can do to actually help individuals or an individual in a big way, those things never come up. Never. Or if they do, we just don't hear about them. But it's so freaking nuts. But the bad things, you've got to live it through the experience of the wrongs that you've done. Get on your knees and pray to Jesus.
And you feel shamed by that. The fact that you can now see from their point what you've done. And they can do the same to you. They understand that whatever they've offended you in your life, it could be a perfect stranger. You might have just, somebody's come begging you for money and you've gone, "Oh, no, go away, you dog, you at the end of the day, and then you realise, oh, that wasn't a good thing to say.
You know, it almost seems like to me that was a life review that you had.
I don't know. I've heard about the life review bit about, you know, how you've seen that probably that bit is, yeah. I don't think I was, again, fully in charge, if you like, of where I was, right? I was still kind of one step on each world. And so whether I got the full value of a life review, which people have recounted, and I've read about those now, you know, where they see their entire life flash before their eyes, you know, in a second. I don't think mine was like that. I think mine was.
Paul could say that, but I'm kind of in unison, assuming that Jeff is thinking the same thing. By what Paul shared with us, it's definitely got a life review feel to it, right? So, you know, obviously make up your own opinion, but it's got all the indicators that he did experience it. We got to remember he was in a coma. So, you know, who knows how the system is running for Paul in this moment and customize an experience for him.
It's just information gathering. You know, this is what I've done here and this is what I'm doing here, you know, and this has affected that because I've affected this person, you know, and I've offended. And it's not specific to people. It's specific to what you've done. It's about you. It's about me and how I see I've offended people rather than a specific person. So, you know, it's not an individual as such. It's just the knowledge that you've done it. You've done it. You've caused offence, and that is to be acknowledged that you've caused offence. And does that make me a better person? I don't know. Being back here, I certainly have, like I said, empathy and sympathy more than I would have done before. I'm reticent when it comes to getting involved in anything that's controversial or could be confrontational. You know, I kind of sit back and go, get on with it, you know. Then you'll understand sometime in the future why I've stood back, because I don't want to offend you and I don't want to offend the other party, so I won't intervene in any arguments or stuff like that. I'm not about to stop anybody from robbing banks or anything like that. You know, it's not the way it is. That's your choice, your person, your soul, your spirit. You do that. You chose that.
I don't think anyone's going to feel too bad if a bank gets robbed. Just saying, in the times we live. I mean, if Paul robbed the bank, I would imagine he'd be donating it to the food bank, right? I don't know.
So I'm kind of a little bit, I suppose,
don't you dare rob the bankers.
Distance from all of that now.
The fine bankers of the world.
You spoke earlier about contacting the living. Do you recall how to do that?
No. I know that there's many ways. I know there's many ways, and I can only assume in my mind's eye, if you like, it can be like I said, my mum. I consider the squirrels are the sort of recognition of my mum. I saw recently, people talk about feathers. I mean, this is not what I saw or what I know. It's what I know now or what I understand now from kind of looking at what others kind of recount. You know, I heard this banging noise and it's the same banging noise every night. And that's the sort of thing that I understand is that you have the ability to do. You know, you have the ability to, like, hang on a minute, you know, somebody touch you on the shoulder, and you, all right, there's nobody there, but you felt like somebody's touched you on the shoulder. So they have the ability to make themselves known to their families and friends and others from the afterlife. So there's no lack of their communication. There's no lack of their understanding on how they can do it, but they can do it, and they can, like I said, as a human being, you don't necessarily recognise it straight away, but you will get it in the end. There will be, I wonder if that's got anything to do with that person or this person. It comes into your mind. It isn't necessarily you're thinking about it and you go, oh, that happened. It's like, I wonder if that was a sign from somebody. But that's the connection. It's the thought is the connection.
And that thought is conveniently fed to them. There's a reason why the screens pop up, while the interactive portions to all this occur. It's to keep the attachments to this place going, to keep the authenticity of the BS moving along as it should. And so they can move on to the next victim. And I hate even saying that word, victim, because we should never, ever have the victim mentality. We should be having the empowering mentality. Knowing that you're the king or the queen of your own castle as a true essence being, and you run the show. The only keys that you need are, access to the information. That's it. And it's all out there. We live in a time where we have access to so much information, where the blatant deception that we live in is available to see up front and center. That's the beauty of it. So please, anyone who's new or otherwise kind of on the fence about the whole soul trap thing, just do your own research. Spend the next couple of years digging through all the different data points that we talk about. It's not just NDEs or comas. It's a load of different things. And it all funnels and feeds into the same thing to show you how the system works and how it tries to pull one over on you. But once you see it, you see it. It can't be unseen. Just like any other blatant truth that's out there about the BS of the earth realm. Well, this is the BS of not just the earth realm, but the astral. So really, it's a beautiful thing. It empowers the hell out of you. And the key thing really is to not let yourself fall into the pits of despair. Empower yourself. Don't give them what they want. Don't fall into a rut, because you deserve better and you deserve the best that you can provide for yourself. So don't let this damn system get ahead of you. That's all.
It's not the event. It's the fault of the event.
Knowing that you may return at age 93, does that have any type of an effect on you?
No, no fear. No fear at all. That's the only effect, is that I have no fear. My only fear is how I go, right? But then I know that if I've chosen that way of going, then so be it. But no, I think, it's another step into eternity, really. It does feel eternal. It does feel, when you're there, it feels like it's a long, long time, a long, long kind of, I use the word time. Time don't really mean anything. But it feels like it's long. It feels like you're going to be around, and you've been around a lot longer than you think you have. We are really old souls, I don't I don't really understand if maybe we were created all at the same time. I don't know. But I know that I feel that I've been around a long time. When I was there, I felt like I'd been around a long time. I felt like my family and my friends and people that had passed that I didn't necessarily know that well had been around for a long time. So it feels like you've had not a reincarnation. Again, I don't know about that, but I feel like you've kind of gone through a spiritual birth, and then school, and then high school, and then this is university. This bit, I mean, this is the last bit before you've passed your test and back again doing what you started out to do. This is your learning curve here, the last bit of it. So that's how it feels. But it feels like it is long past and long future. So I don't fear being there. If it's 93, if it's 103, if I'm 67, if it's 68, then it's my choice. And when I go back, I will know that that's my choice and that's the time, because I'll be there. This wasn't my time. This was purely kind of coincidental. Maybe even, I don't know, maybe even pre-planned as an education. Go back, look in the library again, and see some learning there, to come back here and do a bit more, something with more sympathy, more empathy, more love. Certainly more love now, definitely. I know that the power of that is amazing, to give somebody, you can sense somebody who's got love in them, and you can sense somebody who hasn't. I can tell, that people have got a good sort of soul, if you like, on this planet. I can feel that. But so that, when you say about intuition or extra powers or knowledge or whatever, that is one of those things that you kind of recognise that there's somebody instantly nice. You know what I mean? Whereas before you probably would have just seen them in a passing conversation or something like that. But you go, oh, hang on, this person is really good, and they're doing some good stuff. And that's the key to it all. That's the key to our existence, is using John Lennon's words, all you need is love. You don't need anything else, because that's it. That's what you started with. That's where you're going back to.
All you need is matrix frequency.
That massive feeling of when you met your first girlfriend and you're entwined, it's like, what? You put the phone down first. No, you put the phone down. It's like that, it's that. I want to miss out on this. It's really good. Yeah.
If there was some type of message for humanity that you got from this experience, what would it be?
Try your very, very best as a human being to do as much good as you possibly can, because that's your whole being. That's what you should be doing. You should be doing good things with people, with other, don't matter if it's pets or humans or anything, whatever you encounter that you know intuitively that you should be doing good, not bad. Never do anybody a bad turn. It doesn't work, and it comes back to you later on. Later on, you understand it. As I've said, you understand what you've done in offending people, and even slating people, even talking about people in a bad way is not good. It's not good, because that actually is something that you recognise as well. Oh, did I say that? You get that sense of, I'm not saying that, I'm not doing that. And I think that that's what you are as a human being. We are, as humans, is not only are we intrinsically linked as souls, as spirits, but we're also linked in that point of knowledge of understanding what is offensive and what you shouldn't be doing to your fellow person, fellow human. Yeah, that's it. I think that's it. I think you should do good. Just do good.
And he's right? Just do good. That's the way everyone should live their life, right? Help others, have empathy, compassion, do what you can within your means to be good, to not be an asshole. And that's it. You know, everyone can have differing opinions in this and that, but like the division, like, not just within like the US, but everywhere is so off the charts. It's not even funny. Even within the so-called truth community, it's ridiculous. It's completely absurd. And that's why earlier in the show, like, I'm not gonna, you know, bring parasitical bullshit into here and allow it. It's not gonna happen. You go be parasitical on your own channel. Meanwhile, you're tuning in to every second of every minute of every show that is streamed here, which is weird in and of itself. If you hate this channel so much, why are you watching? Or if you hate anything so much, like if you don't like a TV show or a movie, you shut it off. But at the same time, you know, it's just like being a decent individual. That's all. Just being a decent individual. And it seems like there's always like the divide and conquer mentality no matter where you go. From even the most political of groups or the most spiritual groups or sports-driven groups. Doesn't matter. There's this divide and conquer mentality everywhere. And, you know, if you fall into those traps, well, they are what they are. But it's like, it's catering to the lowest common denominator. It's really pathetic. Absolutely pathetic.
Love as much as you can. Live as long as you can and do some wonderful things while you're alive. Because this is school. This is where you're learning it all from right now.
No, it's not.
And it's just amazing, really, what you're going to be taking back. And it's amazing what you're going to be learning when you're back there. You know, so yeah, I'd go that distance. I'd say that's what I would want to do. For me personally, do good. Do good.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions or chat with you. Are you open to that? And if so, how can they reach you? Yeah.
Well, they can on the Facebook pages, you know. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a social media giant. I'm not, you know, Facebook is just as new to me as it is to everybody else. So I'm still learning about, I didn't know that you can pick a subject on Facebook until the NDE thing. And somebody said to me, yeah, you know, it was actually sudden cardiac arrest that took me to it. And then from that sudden cardiac arrest thing, it went, oh, have you been on the NDE page? Yeah, no, I haven't. So I do a bit of that. So you can probably get me through that, you know, type my name in, Paul Schaefer, you know, and go through those channels, really. I'm happy to do that. I don't really want to spend, you know, huge amounts of time talking on the telephone to anybody necessarily. You know, if there's something that really is kind of that I haven't explained that you need to be explained to, I'm happy to talk to people, you know, in a conversation. I'm not adverse to that. But, you know, I'd sooner do the contact stuff through social media, which is easiest thing, you know, and it can be seen by others as well. You can have your experience with others as well, which is good. You know, I've learned loads of different people's interaction with death. And, you know, some say it's horrible and it's awful and it's terrible. And I had a bad time and I saw the devil. I was getting poked with a red hot, you know, poker. And, you know, most of them are like, well, this is good. You know, this wasn't too bad. You know, I travelled there. I sort of went in the light. I mean, the people that go into the light, stuff like that, you see that all the time. You know, I didn't, like I said, I didn't experience any of that. I just had this font of knowledge going on, really. I was on a learning trip back there, and I'm on a learning trip back here. I know that. But yeah, anybody wants to talk on online or whatever, I'm happy to talk through Facebook or what's the thing that you contacted me on? I can't remember.
You mean Zoom?
No, the original message.
I think that was Facebook Messenger.
That's it. Yeah, you can do that. I mean, I think anybody can do that, can't they?
Well,
yeah.
As long as they have Facebook.
Yeah. Well, if you're going out on a podcast, which is that YouTube you're doing?
Well, this I'll post to YouTube, but I also make an audio version that goes out to places like, you know, Google Podcasts and iTunes and Spotify.
Right. See, they just went straight over my head then, mate. So I've got no understanding of that. So I'm 67 years old, coming on 90 now anyway. But I've never been a wizard of anything IT or anything like that. You know, I'm still pen and paper and kind of a text message now and again. But
well, if you're supposed to,
I like Paul. He's the old school style, sticking to it in 2022.
To be around until 93, you've got over 20 years to learn and get great at it.
I'll start on it now. Yeah, that'll be good.
Paul, thank you for being my guest today again. I really appreciate you, and I wish you a great rest of your evening.
You too, my friend, you too. Yeah, God bless and have a good life, yeah?
Thank you, and God bless you.
And you. Bye, mate.
Thanks for watching the Jeff Mara Pod.
Okay. So that's going to wrap up the NDE portion of today's stream. And I am going to go to the Q&A section before we wrap things up. And just as a reminder, the Last Timers Club monthly members live stream is going to be today, April 30th, Sunday, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be going over shared death experience data points, so feel free to check that out and how they pertain to the Matrix. So if you're interested in getting a little extra content each month, feel free to swing over to Odyssey or YouTube membership section for further information. And your support is always appreciated but never expected. And I also have, before I get to the questions, I also have 2 YouTube backup channels. So if you're new here or haven't already been aware, there's 2 YouTube backup channels which are there. They're parked. I have yet to even use them, but they are there. If you can subscribe and hit the bell for all. That's the other thing is this has been going on forever, for years now. That some will say, oh, I never got notifications, this and that. The only solution I can really give is to, at least with YouTube, is to subscribe and hit the bell for all, not customized. So if the bell isn't fully lit, you probably won't get a notification. And the other thing is, you know, YouTube tends to sometimes not send them out at all, even if you do have the bell selected at all. So that's why I have a Twitter, an Instagram, Facebook, So if you want announcements for when the shows or the live streams are about to start, I usually announce them about an hour prior. Sometimes it might be a day or so, but usually it's about an hour prior to going live. And you can kind of stay in the loop that way. I also have an email list, which I really haven't used, but it's a good way for us to stay in touch just in case something should ever happen here. So please check the description for the email list. And feel free to join there. I also have Twitch, where I do truth in gaming videos. They're very, very casual. And, you know, I'm not some professional gamer, but, you know, if you want to swing by sometime, feel free. And there's some videos up there over on Twitch. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in another way, I also have a Stripe link and a Stream Elements, which are alternative ways to donate to the channel that YouTube won't take 30% from. And then there's also Odyssey hyper chats, or whatever they call them. So there's a few ways. If you do wish to support the channel, I greatly appreciate it. But again, never expected. You know, the most important information regarding the soul trap is always free here, and the important thing is being able to spread the word. So even hitting the like button and sharing it, if you found this information helpful, will help facilitate getting the material into more feeds out there, and maybe spreading the word. You never know who you're gonna kind of impact. That's the biggest thing I've learned on my journey with having this YouTube channel. So yeah, I mean, you never know. You know, honestly, when I first started this, I only expected a few. Like, I mean, I had a subscriber base for other things I was covering at the time, and then I made a full switch over, and I asked myself, like, why am I covering all these other truths like that are just total matrix distractions, and not covering like the Mac Daddy of all truth, which is the soul trap. And when I made that pivot, some stuck around, some didn't. But you know, I honestly felt the whole channel was probably going to tank, but if I only connected with just a few people, that's all I cared about. So just getting the word out there, please help spread it. Like, if you're on other social media platforms, if you're on Reddit or Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Discord, you have a server on Discord, or if you've got a YouTube channel yourself, or a Rumble, or an Odyssey, or something like that, all that can help spread the word. And all I want people to do is just kind of come across this and say, hey, you know, I want to do my own research, and my channel should only be like a catalyst for you proving this soul trap to yourself. That's my number one goal. So everything here should be a stepping stone for your own improvement and evolvement. So and being able to see through the BS. So that's kind of the end of that one. I just had to put that out there. And by the way, I'm sorry, I know I mentioned Odyssey and Rumble, but those are the alternative platforms. Just so you know, we multi-stream on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, and Twitch every stream. And Odyssey is the preferred platform that I'm using, preferred alternative platform that I'm using. And there is a number of videos over there that are not able to be shown on YouTube. So feel free to check those out. Like breakthrough trip reports that I go over. There's Jerry Marzinski interviews. There's a bunch of different things that you can find that are not available here, because I had to remove them, because the terms of services keep changing with each passing few months. It sucks, but it is what it is. All right, so let me just get to the question really quickly. Let's see. Okay, so Black Uni asks, where am I? Black Uni asks, thoughts on soul fragments or split souls or souls separated into pieces? It's a great question. Really good question. That's something I've tossed around a little bit. And I think the best answer to that is we, you know, we're in the human body, right? We're in the meat suit, and we're already inherently fragmented, right? Our full essence is not accessible. So there is some sort of fragmentation just out the jump. Now, I also think that even though there is that fragmentation, I don't think it's like, you know, unaccessible, right? Or inaccessible. I think it's right by our side, and as soon as we pass the time of natural death, boom, the access is there. Because everything opens up. And that's why the Matrix is so persistent on trying to get our attention and distract us so that we don't have that quote-unquote time to think for ourselves, and instead just fall right back into the cycle all over again and buy into its BS. So yeah, even though I do think there is a fragmentation, it's the meat suit that is acting as the governor, just like a governor on a car, right? Like you're only going to be able to go, you know, 70 miles per hour in a U-Haul or a Penske truck, but you know, once you go over that, it you know, the brakes automatically hit in the truck. And that's kind of what I think's going on with us. It's like, because our essence is crammed into the body, there's only so much processing that it can achieve. So, you know, we're inherently fragmented. So that's kind of my opinion on it. Let's see. Black Uni also says, I have reasons to suspect my cat, whom is very odd on several levels, is possibly my dead relative. So weird. Anyone else have odd things like that? I've heard things like this. I can't say I've experienced them, but I would love to hear what anyone in the chat has to say. So anyone still sticking around, what are your thoughts on that? Anyone feel like they have a loved one that may be in the form of an animal in their house? I have felt that one of my current dogs is a reincarnation of my previous dog. I strongly feel that, but not human. So that's kind of just my gut. But again, it's not a human, so it's a little different. Anybody in the chat think so? I think they might have a family member as a pet. Or a deceased family member as a pet. Seems like, okay, Conscious Soul says yes. No. Quite a few no's. Vampire Slayer says it's all a sham, they give us no truth easily, that's for sure. Hit Creator Music says, why would anyone want to incarnate into a cat? I hear you. I don't know. It's Piercing says, lots of people mention soul groups though, man. You think it's a sham to trick us? Yeah, I do. I mean, I think soul groups are absolutely a real thing, but it's all part of the attachment, right? It's like if we keep incarnating with the same group of individuals, and the important thing to point out is that in the reincarnation cases, it's in the past life regressions, life between lives, or pre-birth memories, like where there's some memories just before, like they're picking out their life or something. There's a number of examples that align with one another where the soul group is a very real thing. There's even soul classes, and with regression therapy, the soul classes are something that cannot be pierced. Like, there, for some reason, there's like an information blockade from the soul classes, which is pretty interesting, because you got to ask yourself what the hell is going on in those things. And with the soul group, the other interesting point is that even though, yeah, we incarnate with the same individuals, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be incarnating with them every single lifetime. So we may have a run-in or a connection with one member of the, let's just say one member of a soul group in one lifetime, and it may skip a lifetime or a few, and then we'll be still, but we're still interacting with a number of soul group members in between, no matter how big or small the roles may be. So it's pretty weird stuff, but it all kind of leads back to the same thing, right? Us being attached to our soul group friends, family, pets, whatever it is. Black Uni says, so do NDEs cause people to be more empathetic due to something being broken in the process of death and resurrection in the systemic human body? Like, was it broken? See, I don't even think you necessarily have to have an NDE to get to that point. And I can kind of talk from personal experience, like when I started diving into meditation and in Buddhism and all that stuff, I became a lot more empathetic and compassionate, and I was having OBEs and heightened states of meditation, and it helped kind of open me up a little bit more. So I think even like a spiritually transformative experience that isn't necessarily an NDE can result in opening those channels up and caring for others. So that's just my thoughts on it. But it is getting kind of late here, so I'm going to be wrapping things up shortly. Actually, I'm going to probably wrap them up, but I will see some of you tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the monthly members live stream. And thank you everybody who hung around. I know it was a late one tonight. Appreciate each of you, and hope you found some value in the stream. Please consider hitting the like button on the way out. I also want to thank John Brim for the kind super chat that I missed. I apologize, my friend. and thank you so much. So, and also thanks to Lena and T for the kind super chats and member gifts. So we will see each other again soon. Thank you. You stay healthy too, Super Unknown. I appreciate you, my friend. Always good to see you. Bit of Venom, Super Unknown, Hit Creator Music, Piercing, Conscious Soul, and everybody else out there. T, April, Sydney, and everyone else. We'll see each other again soon. Thanks so much.